Welcome back, mortals, and Happy New Year. Guardians of the Galaxy is a 2021 single-player action game that released back in October of 2020, based on the popular Marvel team of the same name. You probably recognize them as the funny Ooga Chaka heroes from the MCU, and this game falls into a fairly modern type of licensed game, that being the big-budget AAA games that are based on established properties, which I believe was truly started by Batman Arkham Asylum's success all the way back in 2009. Marvel, in turn, has had quite a few games of this nature recently. There was Insomniac's fantastic Spider-Man game, as well as its, in my opinion, better sequel with Miles Morales. Also, Crystal Dynamics threw their own hat in the ring with their divisive Avengers game from 2020.
You doing okay, Hulk?
Agreeable grunt.
But then we have the subject of today, which was developed by Eidos-Montréal, and, like Avengers, was published by Square Enix. I am a fan of the Guardians outside of this game. Ever since I saw Rocket in Ultimate Marvel's Capcom 3, I had become interested in this particular corner of the Marvel universe. Helped even more so by the James Gunn directed film from 2014, which I believe was pretty damn good. Funny thing, this isn't the first game that the Guardians have had, as Telltale made their own game in 2017, which I feel is one of the more forgotten games from that studio. Also, while it's not exclusively a Guardians game, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 also featured the Guardians. I recently got a hold of that game thanks to a friend, and funny enough, Star-Lord is always in my party due to how leveling works in that game. Plus, he's just a lot of fun to play in it. Same with Scarlet Witch. Let's not waste any more time and get into this game. And the first thing I want to cover, I am playing this game on PS4, a slim PS4 as opposed to a PS4 Pro, which I feel is important to mention. No, this game isn't an absolute train wreck on last gen. It still runs fine, it only crashed about one time, and was 100% still a fantastic experience for me on my reliable PS4, but it wasn't flawless, and was one of the glitchier games I played this year. Minor glitches like characters still carrying their weapons when they're meant to be put up, occasional chugging and slowdown in more busy areas, texture and lighting occasionally taking a few too many seconds to load in, which created a lot of pop-in, an instance where Groot's voice line didn't play for some reason, which makes me thankful for subtitles because who knows what important plot details I would have missed if Groot, a character with so much unique and varied dialogue, wasn't heard and I missed something. And of course, the biggest glitch I experienced was the one instance when, in the plot when you're escaping Lady Hellbender's fortress, a door that was supposed to open didn't. And when I reloaded my checkpoint, the game crashed, which is that one crash I mentioned. I don't have footage of any of this because all the footage you're watching is of my editor's gameplay, but it happened. I don't want to drag the game too much for this, given I am playing on older hardware, but I still feel like it's worth bringing up, especially if any of these errors are present for people on something like a PS4 Pro, because I believe that if you release a game for a platform, it should be able to run on that platform and be stable, and if it's not, then that should be criticized, or at least brought up. That said, this isn't to say the experience is the worst possible unplayable mess in the world, because it isn't. I still really like the game from start to finish. I just feel it's worth putting out there for you guys in case you're considering picking it up. You might want to pick it up on a newer console, especially considering how I had to restart my last checkpoint more than once during my playthrough because of some bug. From a door that was supposed to open not opening, to teammates not following me when I needed them to even one instance of a crack I should be able to slide through being unslidable though for no clear reason. It reminds me a lot of how I felt about Jedi: The Fallen Order back when that came out. It's a great game, fun time all the way through, but it isn't super stable and isn't the most technically polished. Again, might be because I'm playing on a PS4 Slim as opposed to PS4 Pro, or even the more expected next-gen PS5 or Series X consoles. I am also not sure how much of this is going to be conveyed in the visuals, since all the gameplay here is of my editor's playthrough. You know what? Let's check on him.
Ooh, that time already. Hey guys, Whalley here, just a quick editorial moment as I wanted to discuss what my experience was with the PC port of this game. Now the footage that you're seeing on the screen Raz at this moment is my PC playthrough of this game, and well, yeah, I have no idea what's going on. Like many people, I actually pre-ordered this game when it was first announced, and I was really looking forward to experiencing the full madness of Guardians of the Galaxy on PC. I even got a new PC too that could actually handle this game's graphical nature too. But to my absolute surprise and horror, I find it like this. What is going on? So unfortunately, I couldn't really record anything properly because nearly every shot you'd see would be something like this, or this, and even this. So that left me with no alternative but to actually get the special edition on PS5, which is the gameplay that you have been seeing currently, and it works better. Which is a real shame because I really was looking forward to playing this game on PC, as from all accounts it works wonders, and from all other playthroughs no one seemed to have any issue that I'm having. Hopefully sometime in the future I'll be able to fix this and I'll be able to experience the full wonders of it being on PC, but as of now, I think I'm going to stick to these sorts of games for the moment. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up now because I've ranted way too much, and let's be honest, we don't want to let that happen, do we? Okay, Dub, back to you. Also, when are you going to pay...
Wait, isn't this game also on Switch? Oh, yeah, it is, and it's a cloud port. Well, I can't speak for that port, but I get the feeling it's probably not the best way to play this game. Call it a hunch. Especially given how this game has a lot of super busy sections, and I genuinely can't see that running super well, or even consistently for that matter, when being streamed. That's the main reason I don't like streaming games as a concept. Too many variables that make it too unreliable for me. Alright, with all that technical stuff out of the way, let's get to the meaty game stuff. Let's start with the gameplay. You play as Peter Jason Quill, aka Star-Lord. He feels great to play as, honestly. I cannot begin to describe how much I love fighting enemies as this guy. Dashing about levels with jet boots, I just start blasting left and right, and it was a fun time all in all. You can fire your blasters, which includes some special types of shots that you can unlock over the course of the story. There are 4 of them. You get the Ice First, which freezes stuff including water geysers that you can use for platforming and holes that spew poison gas. Electricity follows that one, and you can use it to reroute power currents and open turned off doors. Air is the next element, and that is used to pull objects towards you like a gravity gun. And then finally there's Fire, which, well, it burns things, specifically allowing you to melt obstacles and damage enemies. All of these, and I do mean all of them, can be used in combat. Above enemies are their health bars, and next to those are what type of shots they're weak to, which includes not only the special shots, but also standard shots can be some enemies' weaknesses, which is neat. Enemies will also have shields from time to time, which will be colored differently, and using the matching special shot will immediately break down that defense. It's pretty easy to alternate between the 4 types of shots as they're assigned to the D-pad. I'm a Devil May Cry fan, so quickly switching between the moves and buttons on the fly is like... And the rush of fun and excitement battles give me is great. I love dashing across the field, narrowly dodging attacks, which, upon unlocking that perk, gives you the witch time from the Bayonetta games in everything but name, which is so satisfying to pull off. You can also punch enemies, but I wouldn't suggest it unless they're stunned because it doesn't do a whole lot to an active enemy, and they can even counter it if you're not careful. You can also use ability points you gain from battle encounters to unlock new special moves for Quill, as well as using tech you find in level exploration to upgrade yourself with perks, like the one I mentioned previously. Why not workbenches with the help of Rocket Raccoon, which can give you new skills like a charge shot as well as buffs like increased health. Now, Star-Lord is the only character you play as in this game, which some might see as a disappointment, considering that means fans of characters like Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Groot can't play as their faves, but trust me, it's all for the better, because the game doesn't treat them like NPCs. The game doesn't become Star-Lord solves everything, as the team are crucial to gameplay. In combat, for instance, you can command the team to do special moves to hopefully give you a leg up in combat, making you really feel like a leader. Stuff like having Groot wrap enemies in branches to make them open for attack, or having Rocket toss a grenade for some nice crowd control. If you do it just right, you can even open enemies up for special moves that absolutely give you the edge. And teammates also become helpful in exploration. They can be used to solve environmental puzzles to either advance forward or to even uncover secret areas. There isn't a moment where the game doesn't remind you that it's about more than just you, it's about your team. And I love this fact about the game. If you have companions in games like this, I prefer that they have presence in the gameplay and don't just become forgotten about. Say what many will about Ashley in Resident Evil 4, for example, but you don't ever forget her, which is important for that game since the ongoing objective for Leon in it is to save Ashley and return her home safely, which of course means protecting her from harm and keeping your eye on her. Guardians does this the opposite way, as instead of protecting your companions, you're actively commanding them in battle and having them use special skills to get past obstacles and traverse areas. It's cool and I like it. When commanding the other Guardians in combat, it'll slow down gameplay as you go through the menus. Think like how in Final Fantasy VII Remake, when opening up the menu, gameplay slows down so you aren't constantly on the spot when selecting what command you want to execute. Like that game, I never felt like it took away from the flow of combat, but unlike that game, there isn't a shortcut menu you can use to attach some commands to for quick access. You have to use the command menu to command your party. By the way, you can't spam commands. Using a teammate's command will lead to a cooldown, which helps balance the mechanics so you aren't just making everyone fight for you. You still have to do some fighting too. Speaking of those commands, Star-Lord has a few extra moves you can access via either the same command menu you order the others in, or by hitting L3. Each character has 3 moves you gain via ability points, and 1 special move each gains during the plot of the game near the end. Those ability points I mentioned can be used to unlock new commands for your teammates. Fully upgrading your party's skills give you more command options, but that doesn't undo the cooldown timer. If you use one of Gamora's commands, for example, you need to wait for her cooldown timer before you can use any of her commands again, regardless of how many commands of hers you already have. Do enough with a team and it'll build up this huddle meter. Upon filling up this meter like Travis Touchdown working a gas pump, you can hit L1 and R1 at the same time to have the team huddle up. Here you're tasked with paying attention to what your teammates say and replying accordingly to give the right speech that'll drive their motivation up to the Virgil levels of motivation, which will increase damage output for everyone, heal up everyone, and restore any of the cooldown timers you had still active for your team pre-huddle. Also to symbolize their motivation, Star-Lord starts blasting music in his helmet, and you get the pleasure of hearing one of the fine licensed songs that this game has in its arsenal. Songs such as Kickstart My Heart or even the classic Never Gonna Give You Up have a chance of playing among many others. It reminds me of Lollipop Chainsaw and how when activating the super form in that game, the iconic Hey Mickey plays. But I found that it grew tiring when playing for long periods of time in that game, when playing that game for long sessions. Guardians avoids that by having the songs cycle, so it isn't playing the same song every time, but they all give the same motivation for me. It also fits Peter's character, given he shares his love of 80s music that his MCU counterpart, also known as Mario, has. If you fail to huddle and say the wrong thing, you either only buff Star-Lord while the other members are unaffected, or no one gets the temporary buff if you really screw the pooch. But I never once screwed up that bad, so I assume the only way this happens is if you just don't say anything during the huddle. If you don't think you've got the skills to rival Jeff from Community in terms of speeches, you can actually go into the options and switch it so all the huddles automatically win for you. Peter will always say the right thing if this option is turned on without fail, and you don't have to do anything. I play with this off because I trust myself and I like the extra bit of challenge, but I think it's cool that it's even here. Which I'm going to use as a segue to talk about the game's options. With more recent games like this one, I like to look through the options to see what's available. This game doesn't have fully remappable buttons, it isn't like the god tier Devil May Cry 5, but it does have something almost as good, the ability to change subtitle sizes, and even make them bold if you so desire. I appreciate this, as I believe being able to customize subtitle options should be a standard in all games, alongside the previously mentioned fully remappable buttons. I also really like how this game has a fully customizable difficulty setting, which allows you to fully customize the game's various aspects to fit your particular desire of challenge. There are also set standard, easy, normal, and hard difficulties in case you're a 2000s era angry game reviewer and prefer your difficulties pre-made like you do your sub sandwiches. Wait, what the fuck did I just say? Hey, human, did you screw my script again? Huh? Did you change my script? Not really, I just added a few jokes. Yeah, well, this joke doesn't even make any sense. What do angry game reviewers have to do with sub sandwiches? It's a reference. To what? Remember Game Dude? Ugh, come on, it's funny. I'm taking it out. No one will get it. Whatever.
Would you both shut up?
Ignore that last joke, it doesn't make any fucking sense. I like how adjustable difficulty is. I played on standard normal for the sake of giving this game a fair shake in that regard. After all, standard is what a lot of people are going to be playing on. That said, you can change it at any time via the pause menu, and you aren't even sent back to a previous checkpoint when you do this. Level design is great. Each environment feels unique to itself, and they reward exploration with upgrade points and hidden costumes to customize your team. Do you want Star-Lord's MCU fit? You gotta find it hidden in one of the levels. Same goes with every alternate costume save for the final outfits for the party, which are gained via story events. I've mentioned exploration a few times, but the exploration in these levels, both to progress the story and find hidden collectibles, will sometimes require you to use your teammates' skills to move forward. I really do like how the team still consistently get involved both in the story and in the gameplay. Again, it reminds you that you're a team and it isn't just Star-Lord doing everything. My only gripe with exploration is something that's very up for debate. And that's the fact that if you go off the story path to explore, there's a good chance a series of dialogue with the party will commence where they make fun of or complain about Quill going the wrong way. I mean, it's funny at times and it adds character, which is great for immersion and showing the character's relationship. But it happened more than enough times, and it got to a point where I started to think that this could potentially get on someone's nerves, especially with time, since one could see it as being mocked for exploring. Which is counterintuitive since exploration is how you find not only extra costumes for the team, but also upgrade parts to gain those perks that I talked about earlier. Exploration can occasionally lead you to also finding other collectibles. These are objects that, when found, can open up new conversations with your teammates on the ship. They're probably the best hidden collectibles in the game, tied with the digital documents that I also forgot to mention. Given they're fairly small, don't have a signature on your visor, which is essentially detective mode from the Arkham games, by the way, and you really need to be looking to find some of these. That said, I found a little over half of these type of collectibles without a guide, so this isn't Mario Odyssey where a bunch of them have nonsense parameters to find. Just look around and you'll be good. And I mean actually look around. Don't do that thing you do when your roommate asks you to grab the soy sauce and you decided to just glance at the shelf before going, I can't find it, only for me to find it in the front row of the shelf right next to you, Calvin! Now, at the start of the video I mentioned technical issues I encountered during my playthrough, but I'd like to mention just how gorgeous this game can be. The environments are so nice to look at, and I feel the character animations, especially in cutscenes, look fantastic and really help to convey the emotion being presented by the vocal performances, which are all great by the way. My favorite performances coming from John McLaren's Star-Lord and Kimberly Sue Murray's Gamora, but everyone else on the main team are played well, very well, and I don't think there's a single character with bad acting. For the final part of this video, I want to talk about the story, as that's the part of the game that surprised me. Full spoilers going ahead. And since this is a fairly newer release, I feel it's important to do this part last. For those who will be leaving at this point, know that I 100% recommend the game and suggest you pick it up if you like fun sci-fi action games, and especially if you're a fan of the Guardians. Alright, they gone? Okay, let me set the scene. I gotta do this one right.
Star-Lord. He's a radical dude in space. He combs a galaxy like his pompadour on the hunt for aliens. Planet after planet he searches, discovering bizarre new creatures both friendly and not. These are the spectacular adventures of Star-Lord and his brave space crew in space.
That's the setup for Guardians of the Galaxy. It starts with the dandy crew making their way to a restricted area of space in search for a really valuable monster that they can sell to Lady Hellbender. During this expedition, team leader Peter Quill and raccoon mechanic, who isn't pink, Rocket Raccoon, make a harmless bet. Who can blast the most parasite? And, of course, this is a Guardians of the Galaxy game, so it doesn't go as planned, and they accidentally release a cosmic entity who will absolutely come back to bite them and the whole galaxy in the ass. See, during this bet, they blast a group of parasites that have the Soul Stone inside them. Not knowing what the hell it is, they ignore it and move on, but not before first witnessing a creature they don't recognize. This creature is Magus, who is the evil half of a character named Adam Warlock, neither of which you learn immediately and don't learn for quite a bit of time in the game's narrative. The team regroups and are ready to face off, only for Magus to come in and just devour their target, giving them no other choice but to flee. I like this little bit where the health bar of the enemy actually shows up, but then when Magus starts eating it, it just dissipates really quickly. It's neat. Of course, leaving the hazard area doesn't go off without a hitch, and the team is arrested by the Nova Corps because of course they are. While arrested, shit goes south there too, and Peter is split off from the rest of his team and is left in the company of Nicoletta Gold, who is the daughter of Peter's ex-girlfriend, Carell, who just so happens to also be the head of Nova Corp, because Peter has the luck of Marvel's other Peter. This is a good time to mention that this game does have choices that do have some impact on the story of the game. For instance, here, when in the elevator with Carell and Nikki, if you make the right calls and she ends up trusting you, she'll give you her passkey so that her mom doesn't find it. Which seems like a small thing here, but several chapters later it completely lets you bypass a puzzle when you return to Nova HQ. If you didn't have this card, you'd have to search the room for multiple different codes and try to figure out which one of the codes it was the right one. I like that choices matter in ways like this, but the game never makes you think your choice will majorly change the story, instead giving you the idea that it'll change certain aspects of the story. I love Telltale's Walking Dead game, but I feel a lot of people really took the "this story is tailored to your choices" text too literally, and got upset when they realized they didn't change the story outside of character opinions on you, and occasionally who gets to live longer. Never bothered me personally, especially not in that first game, but I'm getting off track. My point is, I think the game handles this whole choice thing really well. As the story goes on, the Guardians find themselves in all sorts of situations, including pissing off a very scary monster collector that Drax is a total simp for, and almost getting killed by a magic cave that has mysterious fog that forces our team to face themselves, not unlike a certain other game. The main plot involves the team going up a very, very evil church that manipulates the galaxy with the promise of giving them back what they've lost. For most, that means the loved one that they've lost in their lives. Grief is a powerful thing, and that desire to reclaim what one has lost is something I'm sure many of us has felt, and that's the part of the story that genuinely surprised me. The game's kinda heavy. Like, really. The first major moment you see this in is in Nowhere. The team is split up for plot reasons, and you can approach Drax as he stares off into the edge of the universe. In this scene, the two discuss the people they've lost. There are dialogue choices here, so I imagine the conversation is slightly different for everyone. But for me, Drax explains that in his religion, one must live a fulfilled life, one of worth, to achieve paradise, otherwise they'll essentially be banished into nothing. Hearing this, Peter gets emotional and lashes out, proclaiming that his mother was a great person and if she's anywhere, she's in heaven. A line here fucked me up, where Peter says, she doesn't deserve to just stop being. And that was the moment I realized this game was gonna get kinda heavy. Drax never holds this outburst against Peter, by the way, because Drax is a real one, and gets that his friend is just as emotional and broken up about his loss as him. This matters since Drax's grief is a major part of this story, and is even subject to one of the chapters. In this timeline, Thanos is already dead, and a great war has recently ended that the galaxy is still feeling the effects of. Drax was the one to kill Thanos here, but even he doubts Thanos' death, which to me isn't actually because Drax thinks Thanos is still alive, but because Drax still hasn't moved on from the loss of his family, which he thought he'd achieve when he slayed the man who killed them. In a later chapter, the Guardians alongside Adam Warlock go inside Drax's head and snap him out of the trance that Mages put him in. See, Drax unfortunately bought into the promise, and with the help of Mantis, who's also in this game, the team journeys through the foggy cave I mentioned earlier, and find Adam Warlock, who is the key to stopping Mages' takeover of the whole galaxy. In Drax's head, you see all of these emotions and thoughts made physical Psychonaut style. In here, we eventually catch up to Drax and the team tries to bring him back to reality. During the conversation, Drax laments how afraid he is to let go. He doesn't want to lose them again, be alone. And Peter reminds him that he isn't alone. He's got them. Themes of loss, grief, death, and moving on are present here, and the game isn't afraid to put any of that front and center. I've noticed themes like this are kind of a constant with modern Guardians media. Not just with the two Gunn films, but even Marvel's What If episode centered on T'Challa Star-Lord had themes of loss. I think that's kinda what drew me to the team, honestly. I've always admittedly had a bias for stories that touch on these subjects, given my mind is plagued with thoughts of existentialism and death regularly. Something I'm getting better at controlling with time, though I still think about it a lot. It's also central to our main leader, Peter Quill, given he still hasn't moved on from being kidnapped at the age of 13 and having no power to help his mother as she's bleeding out from being shot during that. Midway through the game, the Guardians are shown their promises. This is what leads to Drax being convinced by the church, and thus the plot beat I mentioned earlier. And here we see what Peter wants. A chance to save his mom, to have her back, and here you can actually give in and get a fake out ending, which I think is great, by the way. But doing the right thing, pushing her away, and rejecting this false promise is what you need to do to carry on. You also get to see Nikki's promise after rejecting Peter's. Hers is this fantasy of setting up a birthday for her mom with Peter, who's her dad in this scenario, helping her. You see, the theme is also central to Nikki as well as Peter, and she becomes manipulated by the Church of Faith into being their matriarch, i.e. the vessel for Mages to use so that he can spread his influence throughout the entire galaxy. In the final hours of the game, you revisit Nikki's promise and have to redo the sequence of setting up Karel's birthday, while he tries to get through to Nikki. Here, Karel, or at least a ghost of her, explains that we need to snap Nikki out of this, and how we have to help her move on, to realize this isn't real and that she can't keep living this lie. Here, we as Peter have to help a 12-year-old girl deal with the very real and painful grief that is her mother being dead, and killed right in front of her. Very much like Peter's own trauma. If you choose the dialogue to try and relate to her, she'll snap at Peter about how she doesn't care how he feels. Because of her position as the matriarch, She's seen everyone's promises, all of what they've lost, and none of it has helped her deal with how she feels. It's a great scene between the two, and it does end with Peter helping her accept her mother's death, which of course then leads into a boss fight against Raker. The dude has sort of been pulling the strings behind the whole faith thing because of his desire to revive his own dead son. The fight against Raker it's okay. You have to break down his shield and then go ham on him upon it being broken. He has a few health bars, and then upon beating him, the game is over. Right? I mean, after this fight, Adam seals off Magus inside himself, and the team does a victory strut back to the ship. Nope, wait, it's not over. Magus took Adam over, and now the party has to fight against a massive version of him to save the galaxy. This finale, this climax, it is so cool in terms of scale and execution. Here we are, the Guardians of the Galaxy. We must fight against an onslaught of enemies that Magus sends at the crew while we try to bait him into getting close enough so that we can steal the Soul Stone back from him. Because surprise, surprise, the game didn't just throw away an Infinity Stone at the start. The game has a few bosses. Not many, but a few, and they're all fine. The two big guys on Nowhere are probably the least interesting fight to me. You just shoot at them when they're not near one another. It's a neat idea, but not very interesting. The fight against the Cthulhu monster, the first real boss of the game, was really cool, and I say that as someone who has an actual Cthulhu in her basement. The battle against Thanos inside Drax's head was okay. It's a swarm of Thanoses that can't be beat by normal means. It's a forced loss fight, the idea being that only by letting go of his obsession with Thanos can Drax truly start moving forward, but Thanos himself feels like just a regular swarm of enemies. Again, okay encounter, but not a very good boss. The only boss in this game that comes close to the scale of Magus is Fin Fang Foom. And of course, that fight slapped. You're fighting a massive fucking dragon. But Magus looked at that fight and went,
"Okay, but I can throw planets like this is Gurren Lagann or some shit."
Like legit, Magus throws planets at the Guardians, and it's so fucking cool. The sheer scope of this dude makes the finale so rad. It ends with the gang all working as one to throw the Soul Stone towards Peter, who uses it to seal a charging Magus back into his prison, all while Europe's final countdown plays. It's just, nothing I say can do it justice, but it's so damn cool in the moment. I spoiled a bunch, I know, but I left some stuff out too, just in case those of you who stayed around still haven't played the game and now want to. You still got some surprises in store for you. What more can I say? Honestly, I think Eidos-Montréal's Guardians of the Galaxy is a great and thrilling sci-fi romp that does justice for the team and gave me a game I thoroughly enjoyed from beginning to end. Funny enough, this game is the first game to really sell me on the idea of upgrading to next gen. Sure, something like Rift Apart has my attention, it looks great, but it's not something that makes me want to rush out and buy another expensive console. No offense to Ratchet, of course, I love that guy. But Guardians makes me really want to upgrade, because I just know, or at least feel like this game will be even better if it's on the hardware it truly deserves. So, when I upgrade, this game is now up there with Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition and Final Fantasy 16 on my play immediately to-do list. The game's good. Not sure what more needs to be said at this point. Pick it up. It's available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC, so I'm sure most of you have at least one way to play the game. Just keep in mind what I said about the PS4 version and what Whalley said about the PC version. There are fixes online, but know that going in. It's a great game, with its only real issue for me being that it isn't the most technically stable or polished game on some platforms. And yes, I know I didn't mention the Switch port. It's a cloud port, so I did that on purpose. I cannot imagine that's a good way to play the game, considering more powerful systems have problems running it. It's also a game that's being streamed, so it's probably even worse. Hey, you get the video done? Oh, that? Yeah, it's good. Delivered his stuff to Whalley. Now he just has to edit it. Whalley? Wait, is that the guy in the basement? What? No, that's Cthulhu. Whalley's in the dungeon. Cthulhu? Calvin's dad, I swear I've mentioned him before. What kind of person am I in this reality? Someone with much larger tits. Don't finish that sentence! Why did you even come in here? I just, well, you know, I wanted to check on you. You didn't know how to end the video, did you? What gave you that idea? Barbara holding that camera in the corner? Oh.
Hi there, human ma'am.
Hey, Barbara.